What we're witnessing today is not merely a tax reform, but a moral and educational miscalculation. The decision to impose VAT on private school fees has been heralded by the government as a redistributive measure, a so-called tough but fair policy that's going to produce more teachers. There are no more teachers. There are a few more school meals, and Rachel Reeves on Wednesday was gloating as if there is no tomorrow. Maybe she knew that the High Court was going to move in this direction. In truth, it's a policy that fails on its own terms, legally fragile, socially divisive, economically incoherent, and educationally regressive. The High Court has now ruled against the legal challenge brought by private schools, pupils and parents. 3 judges, Dame Victoria Sharp, Lord Justice Newey and Mr Justice Chamberlain, found the VAT policy proportionate and within Parliament's broad margin of discretion. Yet their very language betrayed discomfort. The judges admitted that the policy interferes with the right to education, and they acknowledged that many families affected, including those with children with special needs or in religious schools, have limited or no viable state provision. And they conceded quite boldly that provision for the 1.1 million children with SEND in the state sector is, in their words, overwhelmingly negative. In short, they ruled that the government has every right to enact a policy which knowingly compounds existing educational failures. It may be legal, but it is not just. Ministers claim that this is about fairness, about making private school parents pay their fair share to fund state schools. But what is fair when the result is displacement without destination? And fair surely is about paying taxes. We pay taxes. Now, people who are putting their children through private schools pay an extra dollop as well. The policy is expected to raise £1.8 billion annually, which was originally ring-fenced for state school improvement and for teacher training. Now Prime Minister Starmer has suggested it may go towards housing instead, a blatant contradiction of the pledge by Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who assured Parliament that every penny would support education. If this is fairness, it's a version defined not by outcomes but by optics. And behind the spreadsheets and the slogans are real children and real failures. One girl left her state school after experiencing abuse, only to find refuge in a single-sex, independent school now priced out of her family's reach. Orthodox Jewish and Muslim families testified their children's religious education, often modestly priced, is still unaffordable. Children with SEND were placed in private schools not out of snobbery, but necessity, often because the EHCP system is so broken and state schools are so overwhelmed that their needs are not being met in the state sector. The response to the Treasury admitted that a SEND exemption would cost £450 million, and they chose instead to let these families sink. This isn't just taxation, it's abdication of responsibility. And the policy is rooted in political theatre. It appeases a voter base that has come to equate independent schools with privilege, while ignoring the fact that nearly half of private schools operate on charitable margins, serving middle-income families, religious communities, and children with additional needs. And let's not forget, education was previously VAT exempt across Europe, and the High Court even noted that Brexit ironically enabled this tax raid. A grim reminder that we are now free to implement bad policy with impunity. The decision to impose that VAT mid-academic year was, in civil service terms, maximally disruptive. This was not fiscal necessity, it was a deliberate political choreography. And we are told this is about justice, but a just education system that doesn't crush one group to subsidise another is not just. A just policy would reform the EHCP process, invest in inclusive schooling and foster plurality, not uniformity. And when that is done, if it's done well enough, if the state schools are so good, why would anybody want to pay money to a private school? This VAT policy fails because it is educationally incoherent, socially punitive, and politically dishonest. It generates revenue not through aspiration but attrition. It doesn't produce more teachers. It doesn't produce a better standard of teaching. It produces only pain. Pain to the children who are halfway through their school year and have to move schools. Pain for the parents who thought that this was an answer that they found to the poor standard of education which they found previously in a state school. But it's not. It's not. The opportunities have been taken from people, and they've been told instead that they are privileged, and the language of class has been used. to punish people who actually have no alternative. There are alternatives, for example, however, and I think we need to be talking about them. Alternatives like homeschooling and teaching children through Zoom and through AI, but that requires quite a leap in the dark for many parents. The High Court may have endorsed the government's right to pass this law, but the moral case remains unmade. And the moral case is something that the High Court have raised eyebrows over, and the damage is already unfolding.